Hello guys, we are live today on Carnivore Team GB, session number 26 with myself, Ben Hunt, Coach Stephen and Lee live from the hospital. Also with Phil Escott over here. So today we're going to be answering questions all to do with digestive health and digestion on the carnivore diet. Now we've been joined today with Lee from the hospital, which I'm very grateful for and I appreciate his special appearance given the circumstances. He thought it'd be good to have a real first person perspective of what's going on in the eyes of someone that is currently on a carnivore diet that has been trying to very patiently fix their digestion through both medical interventions and different dietary approaches. So, Lee, how about you give us just a brief sort of backstory about what's going on at the moment, how you're doing right now, and just tell us about your experience at this present time in the hospital.
Oh, well, I've had a bit of an exhausting day, and I'm hoping that the mobile data won't sort of have interruptions and things like that. Yeah, but I'm having sort of good days, bad days. For anybody that doesn't know, I've had a surgery which was to finalize my previous ileostomy surgery from 7 years ago. So I've had my rectum and anus removed, but because the tissue was so small, it dangerously encroached on some pelvic nerves that they didn't want to tamper with, and so they deemed it safer to perform the surgery from the front. And this basically extends the recovery. They wanted to put stents in also. You know, they thought that was safer as well. I've had some issues pertaining to those. Most of my pain and symptoms have come from that. And it's been over a week and I'm still struggling a little bit. I'm not going to be, dishonest about it. I've struggled with the state of my arms. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good and confident that I should be going home tomorrow if all things go to plan. My surgeon typically does surgeries on a Wednesday, and so I'm hoping he's going to come round extra early to do whatever he needs to do and say, yeah, we're happy for you to go home. I'm dreading the car journey home because sitting upright is a real pain in the butt. And yeah, but I'm okay. I'm feeling positive. Today's been all round a better day, and I'm on the mend. So I haven't been speaking overly too much, and so finding myself getting a bit out of breath, So when I'm talking, so if I'm a little bit slow, that's what that's all about.
Yeah, no worries. It's understandable given your situation. You've been pumped full of drugs. You've had your insides ripped out. You got a sore stomach from the incisions, things like that. So I'm not surprised at all. So feel free just to drop off whenever you need to. If you want to answer just anything, you're more welcome to just pop on and off as you need. And Lucy has just popped up onto the chat. She said, "Enjoy your live, Lee." So that's the partner of Lee. She just left the hospital. There we go.
Yeah.
So if anyone does have any questions related to digestive health on the carnivore diet, now's a good time to ask. This is the best place to do it. We've got 5 people here, all short and medium and long-term carnivores that have all had a different experience with digestive health, and I'm sure we've all had a different kind of benefit to be had from it. Perhaps just go around the sort of chat quickly before we sort of get to the questions, because nothing's turned up just yet. Just a reminder, please leave a queue before the questions so we can easily spot it. So perhaps we'll go with Ben and just ask him if you only had any sort of symptom relief from the carnivore diet, any sort of digestive issues you had before which are no longer really present.
No, just gas, really, to be honest. I mean, I was never really too damaged gut-wise. No, I mean, if anything, I think carnivore seems like it's made me more sensitive. Particularly if I have anything with sugar in, I start belching almost immediately as well. And when I went clean for 90 days and then had a long car journey with an early start, and I had like a big thing of chocolate and coffee that just shot straight through my system. So yeah, funnily enough, it seems as though carnivore has made me more sensitive rather than more robust, funnily enough. But no, I'm not really the expert on first-hand digestive issues.
Sure, we'll go with Phil now.
I used to part for England and I don't anymore. So it's a lot more boring. When I ate nothing but muesli and fried eggs on toast, I was a champion at my school. Anyway, carry on. Phil.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's at the root of everything, isn't it? And I've just got to say to Lee, thanks so much for coming on, man. I mean, we've all been following you so much, and you know, the stuff that you posted and the stuff that you've
Appreciate
said
it.
to us privately, it's just wow. And the weird things that they do in hospitals, eh? I mean, I'm still in a puzzle why they put stents in the ureters. Well, I don't know. You know, having poisoned myself with spinach smoothies and having a kidney stone, I can't. Well, I can imagine the pain that you've been through. It's horrific, mate. But so glad that you can come on today. As far as digestion goes, I mean, I'm in the same boat as Lee, although it attacked different parts of my body. And the root of it really is fixing the digestion. You know, you can go sort of subtler into
Close to childbirth. Close to childbirth, according to some of the nurses.
Two nurses separately said to me that they'd had both and that kidney stones was worse. Yeah, it's that bad, definitely.
Well, if you think about it, lots of women go, you know, a year later, 18 months later, they go, oh, do you know what? I can't fancy another baby. Has anyone ever said, do you know, I could really use another kidney stone?
Well, yeah, apparently I said it. In 8 years, can I have another kidney stone? And I did, but it takes that long to dump oxalates. So no, I wasn't really up for it. But as far as digestion goes, I think it's at the root of everything. You know, those PEG tests they do at Paleomedicina and show that even if you have a little tiny bit of veg left in the diet, the gut never truly heals. I'd say, you know, my knee is still lying in bed next to Lee there somewhere in spirit, and it destroyed that. And you know, it's given Lee this. And just if anyone's watching, what happened to Lee here was not because of the carnivore diet. Right? It's you know, it's still there and having just amazing results with the carnivore diet. In fact, I did a consult today with somebody with an ileostomy as well. And it was a really interesting chat because he was saying that he's now developed a load of arthritis and he's in terrible pain. They want him on biologics, all of that sort of thing. And he was saying that it's difficult with the ileostomy because if he eats just meat, it can be too liquid, and eating loads of cheese and milk and dairy and whatever can sort of thicken it up and make it slightly easier. And it was a bit of a revelation for him to think that the arthritis might be even triggered by not getting things so strict and still having a hell of a lot of dairy that he even described as his staple. And then I said, well, you know, whatever happens with the ileostomy, it's probably best to drop out cheese. But I wanted to ask you, Lee, have you found anything like that with difference in consistency and whatever? Because, you know, I couldn't really answer him that. Just I can answer him about calming the joints down.
Yes. So, yeah. So typically, the stomach nurses are used to finding a consistency that's just from the average ostomate, and an unusual one because they go, oh, is it usually this liquidy? And the truth is that if I had my colon, that's as it would enter the colon, that's when the body starts to uptake, reabsorb the water and the sodium. And so it looks like it's unhealthy, but it's not. But you can obviously salt your food a little bit more. Cheese will stodge it up, but there is a nice little trick. And for anyone who has a bag and they find it inconvenient that the outputs may be fast and liquidy, you can add some grass-fed beef gelatin powder to your meals, and that will thicken it up a little bit without having to go for some starch or something like that. Cheese, I don't have a problem with personally either, so I do eat, still having issues. Gelatin powder is a great trick, like a hack, if you like, on a carnivore diet to allow that to thicken up a little bit. It's all about timing as well, you know, with sleep. And if you were to go somewhere, you might think, well, I'll eat early or I'll eat a little bit later. I might add some cheese. I'll make this extra salty. So there's little tricks and things like that. But the unfortunate thing about our situation is that we're supposed to have a colon. We weren't supposed to end up in this situation. And usually you have the benefit and the convenience of reabsorbing the water and the sodium. Your output's going to look just like a healthy, normal stool. And so we don't get that privilege anymore. And so it's something that you have to come to terms with, really. And everybody's slightly different. So the way you fine tune it is going to be different from one individual to the next. But that's all I would say. Salt, cheese works if you can tolerate it. And gelatin powder is like a little bit of a hack.
Can I ask you one more thing? Well, I've got you here, Lee. Also, he was asking about fasting and dry fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And would that
Sure.
make any difference to if you've got an ileostomy? Would it
Sure.
make any difference? Would it make any difference to, for the effectiveness of the dry fasting? And he was worried whether there would be some kind of dehydration. And I thought it might not be any different to anybody who actually had everything down there. But what do you think? Because I'm getting a bit selfish now to be able to link this to him. I love it when you have a consult. You just want to see everybody sorted,
Yeah.
But it was those two questions I didn't have an answer.
I've played around with, yeah. Sorry about the delay. But yeah, when I tried and errored this myself, I had the same kind of concern. So I thought, well, without the colon, I wonder if I would run extra low on electrolytes, whether I would get headaches and so on and so forth. Just ease into it. Your body's very, very smart. It does adapt quite well. I've realized that, yes, you can fast. I did a 5-day fast, was my longest stint kind of thing. I've played around with dry fast too, and actually it's quite nice. You get a break from the output. You get a break from the bag working all the time. You can sort of focus more on your sleep and stuff like that. And originally what will happen is your digestion will slow down because you haven't now got this feed, this chain, this loop. The last meal will be quite a bit slower on the way out. And once you get rid of that, you may even have a little bit more of a liquidy output as you flush your system out. But your body, whether you go into a dry fast or not, will adjust. And I've done 2-day fast, 3-day fast, 1 5-day fast, and a couple of just, one, maybe a little bit over a day dry fast. And they work pretty well for me. So I think it's about getting in the nutrition in preparation for your fast. Make sure that you eat a great meal, lots of red meat, maybe even add some egg yolks, liver if, because you're just getting that extra nutrition in, extra salt. Don't drink any water. Wait an hour or so. If you're thirsty, take some sips up until you go to bed, and then just call it a day. Wake up in the morning. Usually you're not even thirsty. And so I would recommend maybe just a dry fast for 1 day. You can maximize the benefits, and it's really convenient that you can get the job done in a shorter space of time. Otherwise, if you really feel like you need a drink, take a sip with some. Maybe the first time might not be ideal, but you will adjust. And I'm going to use fasting strategically when I feel it's necessary and a good tool to use in that moment, kind of thing.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Go ahead, Stephen. What's your story? Do you have any stories about digestion at all?
Yeah, I actually brought a prop along for those that don't understand what's happened to Lee, and just to make sure that everyone understands what digestion is. So you've got a mouth up there and you've got a tube, basically, and then all your food goes through your small intestine, and then it goes into your large intestine, or sometimes called the colon. And he's got a bag, and he had a bag fitted way before he was carnivore. And he's basically come on my channel and said that in that bag you never see meat, you always see plant material. I used to eat a lot of sweet corn. There is a link here, but and sometimes that would be my poop. But I never saw bits of meat or bacon or bits of egg or anything like that. It was always plant material. So I was a bit like Ben. I just thought farting all the time was natural. I really did. And I don't do that anymore. It just is that simple, because we're eating food that is designed to go into your mouth, down your esophagus, into your stomach, into your small intestine, and get all processed. And then the colon basically is the waste pipe, the exhaust pipe. By the time you've eaten your carnivore meal, there's not much waste. But when I was high carb and eating lots of fruit and veg and bran, and oh boy, makes me so annoyed. I was on the toilet 4 times a day, thinking, well, that's healthy, isn't it? I'm going regularly. So yeah, for me, it was just not uncomfortable. I did have lower left quadrant pain, and I did have to have a colonoscopy. So maybe I'm underplaying it a little bit. My mother absolutely fell for the food guidelines and was on the old bran flakes and skim milk and fruit and veg, no red meat, no fat, and she died of colon cancer. So sorry to sort of sound like this conversation with Lee lying in there having colon problems, but she shouldn't have had that. So I thought all my problems when I got into my 40s were genetic, nothing to do with what I was eating, until I started to eat differently. And then I realized it was nothing to do with genetics. It was everything to do with what I was eating. Of course, I'm cross, because if I knew that then, I would have stopped my mum eating all that stuff. And the advice, as the pain got worse and worse and worse, was to eat more fiber, eat more fiber, have bran flakes, have this, have that. And her problems just got worse and worse and worse. So she was in and out of hospital for about 11 years, actually. She had a 9-pound cancer growth in the end. So, yeah, it means a lot to me to get your digestion right. And obviously, to get your digestion right, there are a few things. Firstly, don't put things into your body that are hard to digest or can't be digested. Fiber is one of those things that falls into the latter group. It is an indigestible polysaccharide. Lots of sugar you can't digest. It tells you all. We've only got to look at what it is. So I think for me, just from the sort of aesthetics of being around people, not having all the gas has been really good. And realizing, literally, once my mum had died, I spent the rest of my life thinking, well, because both my parents died very early. I did have a girlfriend die of breast cancer as well in my 20s. I really do think my number's up. My card is marked. I'm going to be dead before I'm 50. Also, the doctor telling me I would be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 50, because my hip was so bad, apparently. So here I am, 60 in 3 weeks' time, and I've had 10 years of not dying, and 10 years of not having gas, and 10 years of not having lower left quadrant pain. So I get a little bit triggered by this particular subject, because you do get idiots constantly saying, Phil will like this, because he's probably had this all the time. I was actually called a charlatan for the first time ever online, which makes me laugh, because apparently I don't look at studies. It doesn't matter that I've got like over 1,000 clients, and many of those have resolved all their issues. And they sent me studies about fiber, and then I just had a 1-sentence reply back and said, you do realize there's not one group there with no fiber in their diet. So obviously, and he was called evidence-based medicine guy or something. So anyway, I think this is a good subject.
Stephen, I had exactly the same thing today. It was really strange. And that I was a charlatan. I was only in it for the money. I actually sent him a screenshot of my bank account. And I said, I promise you that I have not been that low because I bought too many Ferraris after I was financed by the meat and dairy industry. It's bizarre, isn't it? It is bizarre.
It is. Yeah. We've got one car. It's 10 years old. It's on its way out. We live in a terraced house. We're not doing it to be multimillionaires.
You've got a car. You've got a car. When we were young, we had a broken roller skate.
Oh, you were lucky.
Luxury.
Anyway.
Right. Thank you.
I just wanted to hash into a point there, guys. We all do offer services, so they are linked. Apart from Lee, of course, he's in hospital right now. But if you look below our titles, so our names on the screen right now in red and white, look below, there's our website. That's where you can find us. You can support us, buy our services, packages, consultations, anything you want to buy. Please stop expecting everything for free and emailing us. I've had to reduce all my social media output and reduce a lot of connections to my friends because of people like you trying to get free consultations every single day. It does make my life an absolute living hell. And I don't get paid to be disabled, guys. So please show some respect. I've had a lot of god awful comments recently by people expecting free consultation. I do not consult people for free. Can't speak for the other guys, but that's just my 2 cents in it. I worked very hard to get where I am in life, and I am disabled. I could be on PIP, but I'm not. I'm doing my best. So, get back to the point of the digestion now. So I was a very heavy bodybuilder at one point, 125 kilos. Currently now about 95, 96 kilos, something like that. So I've dropped a significant amount of weight deliberately. When I was 125 kilograms, I was eating, calories is not a metric, but if you looked at the food labels, 6,500 plus calories every day for years on end. At that point in time, I was eating around 3.5 to 4 kilograms of food per day, and that is what I feel contributed most to the digestive issues that I had. Acid reflux, digestive issues, cardioesophageal hiatus hernia, which means I've got a lump in my throat with a, not very pleasant. It's as big as it can be without having a surgery on it, and it's not very pleasant. I've had 2 umbilical hernias, 1 abdominal hernia, 1 umbilical hernia, as a result of eating processed food. Now, in the bodybuilding space, not relevant to most people listening to this, but most people eat crap and they try to patch it up with a bad diet, with supplements, enzymes, betaine, this, that, the other. But these things are short-lived. You can't do or outwork a bad diet, guys. So that's my take on it. My food mass now that I'm eating is somewhere between about 1.5 kilos per day. So I've drastically reduced the food volume which I've eaten, which I feel is the biggest impactor of my digestive health as of right now, besides getting off as many medications as physically possible, which included pain medication, which is toxic as hell for my body. Not my medical advice I'm giving here, but I look into the effect of NSAIDs on digestive health and the colon health and just stomach ulcers and things like that. Quite a few contraindications there, and they do give them out willy-nilly from GP surgeries. I'm going to get to the questions now, guys, so I'm going to go through them in order of sensibility, relatability to this topic, which is digestion. We've got one from the Kreggers. Any tips for a Crohn sufferer who's doing a line diet, grounding, blue blocking glasses, electrolyte, 6 hours of sleep, and gym 3 times a week, but my energy levels are very poor? It could be anything. From that, I know you've given us some detail here. I'd book a consultation personally. It could be a number of things, but perhaps we'll go around the table again. We'll start with Ben, being good to Phil, then Stephen, or Lee can chime in first if he wants, and say what things is he missing, what things is he or she missing that perhaps we haven't covered in those biohacks that he's doing right now.
Jump straight to Phil.
Well, the first thing I'd say is that you're saying you're doing lion diet, but lion diet, I don't know. It just means beef and lamb, or sort of, any ruminant animal. And I'd say, what fat ratios are you using? Because when the gut is very sensitive, very leaky, or at the beginning of the healing journey, it's not just about eating meat. It's about eating the right ratios of fat. So if you're eating, the right ratios, which by sight are sort of about 1/3 fat to 2/3 lean meat on the plate, which is the easiest way to work it out, you're going to have far better results than you will do just, thinking, well, beef and lamb is fine. If you're having too much protein, that's still going to get through those leaky junctions in the gut and cause some issues. But get the fat content really high. If you can, grounding, blue light blockers, electrolytes, 6 hours of sleep. Yeah, but the grounding, blue light blockers, all of that is wonderful. But if you're still taking in too much protein and not enough fat to heal up the gut, and you're still getting reactions from the protein, those proteins are not proteins that can make a gut leaky, like things like gluten, for example, which will make the gut leaky. But when the gut is leaky, those proteins can still get through. So don't expect that it's going to stop immediately. I always like the analogy of a ferry. And if you turn off the engines, it doesn't stop immediately. It carries on. And so there will be some issues afterwards for a little while, and they'll tail off. But that's where people go wrong when they don't have the confidence. They think that after years and years or decades of getting in these messes, that it's all going to shut down in a day. and it isn't. It's going to take a while. But if you get the confidence with that, see how many people have eventually healed on this protocol, and how, you know, people like me just didn't get the confidence and delayed it for years, ending up with damage. Please get onto that. High fat, beef, lamb, that's it, salt and water, but high fat. Don't think about lion diet, that it's just the meat. The rest of it is fantastic for getting your circadian rhythm sorted and, you know, having enough sleep to actually do that healing. If you are, one thing at the end of the comment there, you say your energy levels are very poor, maybe you're not fat adapted correctly yet. It doesn't say how long you've been doing this, but the gym 3 times a week, it completely depends what you're doing. If you're in a healing phase of healing the gut, you shouldn't be in the gym. And maybe that's why your energy levels are poor. Wait until your body is so energized and healed that it's demanding the gym 3 times a week. Don't force yourself to go in there. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take the ball from Phil because that's good. All that's excellent. Hippocrates said, "You are what you eat." Well, he wouldn't say that now. He'd say, "You are what you absorb." So you might not be absorbing all this stuff if you're eating the lion diet. And I'm absolutely with what Phil said there. You know, lamb and beef, and eliminating lots of things is really good. But if you're eating it and you're not absorbing it, doesn't make a difference. So I would agree with Phil on the fat ratios. Look at that. I'd definitely get out of the gym for a bit. Just give yourself a little bit of respite. You know, when you're poorly, I would actually look at your frequency of eating as well and the volume, because if you're struggling and you really have got leaky gut, you want to make your life as easy as possible. So I always say this, and I always preface it with, I do sound like a granddad, but chew your food. So the mechanical digestion at the start is really, really helpful to break down the food before it hits your stomach acid. Don't take antacids, don't take antibiotics. You know, basically keep away from stuff that's going to ruin your stomach acid, because that's the first line of defense from pathogens. So that would be it. I would add these little tweaks. I mean, Phil really did say it all, but definitely chew your food more. Maybe don't do the 2 meals a day, maybe do like 4 or 5 meals a day. Definitely would like to know how long you've been doing carnivore, and don't feel guilty about not going to the gym for a bit. Just get yourself fit internally, and then you'll find that the food you're actually eating will become part of you rather than not being absorbed. And you might see that your energy levels go up, and then you can get yourself back in the gym slowly but surely. I mean, I only do 15 minutes 3 times a week, and I'm an advanced personal trainer, and that's enough. That is enough for most people. You know, I'm not Jonathan's doing a show, so, you know, he's going to be training hard. But if you're just looking for health and fitness, and you've got Crohn's and you're feeling really poorly, I think that's a brilliant advice, just to keep out of the gym for a bit.
Yeah, Lee, do you have any take on that at all? I know we've covered quite a bit of ground already, but do you have any sort of personal experience and wisdom?
I think they've got it spot on. Absolutely nothing to add with that. They've nailed it. Honestly, nothing to add.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'd definitely rehash what the guys have said about not focusing too much about body composition, training in the gym. If you want to do anything, go for a walk. That improves digestion. If you can do it outside, even better. I would make your absolute sole purpose on healing. If you're someone that's been doing these things, you've been down a few rabbit holes already. Coming from all of us, I can quite happily say, forget about trying to be perfect and build a humongous muscular body or do anything. These gyms are blue lit. I work with my coach for my bodybuilding show to reduce my exposure to blue light in the gym. So sometimes I'm actually wearing a hoodie in the gym with my head covered sort of thing, just because the blue light it is intense for me. It does seem to deplete the crap out of me. And if your body's not in a healing state outside in the sun, then your body's in a depleting state. So try to think, like, every action you do in life, is it going to result in a positive or negative outcome? So that's kind of how I look about things now. That's how all the guys this panel look at things. We've got digestive issues here. We've got Ben, who has flare-ups of gout. We have arthritis. We have spine disease, autism, you know, different mental health issues and things. we've all dedicated ourselves deliberately to try and get past these hurdles. So it sounds like you're doing everything you can do, but just rehash and reground yourself on all the things that you are doing and just try to optimize from there. But I think you're doing a great job, and with a bit of time it should heal. Keep the fat a bit higher, protein a bit lower, try not to eat till you're stuffed, and Stephen made a really good point as well about splitting up your meals a little bit more. So yeah, I'll definitely do that one. We're going to go to the next question now, which is from Mojo Curio. Is strict carnivore enough to heal leaky gut? If not, what else do you recommend? This kind of goes into what we've just spoke about. This previous stuff about circadian health, splitting up your meals a little bit, sleep, not over-exercising, grounding. I mean, there's some other things. I could talk about supplements if you want, guys. There are some peptides you could look at. KPV, that's one peptide. So that's K for kiss, P for pop, I don't know, V for Victor, something like that. Another one is BPC 157. That one's been very effective in my experience as an oral capsule. It's not medical advice. You do have to source these things yourself, and it could be a bit grey area, but I can say from anecdotal experience, it is naturally produced by gastric juices, and it is very effective for me. So I do actually use that from time to time. I do actually keep a bottle on hand. If I have anything spicy, if I have anything out and I'm not meant to eat it, that really, I'll take a few capsules of that as almost like a patch up kind of thing. But it's not going to replace a good, sensible diet overall. Some other things I'd look at are taurine, TUDCA, so TUDCA, helps with bile acids. It's a downstream eventual, how to put it, peptide of taurine. So it helps go downstream and does very deliberate action on the liver. So if you can get your liver health good, your kidney function good, gallbladder, all those things will work in concert to help heal the gut. So start to think about other organs you've got as well. Healing leaky gut isn't as simple as just healing one thing. And I know for sure Phil has some points to make about like maybe not the spirituality, but the mental side of it. The power of positive belief. If you think pessimistically, you're probably going to be pessimistic about healing as well. So I'm hoping Phil might be able to talk a bit more about that, because that's definitely something that's more in his sort of field. But I'll pass it over to Ben now. So if Ben, you've got any additions to what I've just mentioned, that'd be quite helpful.
With this one, I mean, there's a few other things to. I mean, obviously, strict carnivore should mean no alcohol, because alcohol, even moderate alcohol, is known to be a factor in keeping leaky gut. Obviously, things like lectins, stuff like that, you're not going to have to worry about. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, Jonathan, you already mentioned. Interesting one that came out today, that someone in our group shared an article that came from Paleomedicina with, I haven't pulled it up, but showing that coffee consumption actually in real time over a few hours led to double the intestinal permeability in one particular patient. So they say absolutely no coffee at all for cancer sufferers, and it's strongly advised against if you've got any kind of autoimmunity as well. But stress is known to be a factor. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure Phil will talk more about this as well, but yeah, keeping the stress down. And there are reasons why, just to repeat what Phil said earlier, why Paleomedicina advise such a high fat diet as well, because the I guess just to make sure that you're getting all the nutrition without overdoing it on the proteins as well. But yeah, those are things to bear in mind. I mean, this really it's the final nail in the coffee coffin for me today, seeing that particular article. I'll see if I can find it. We'll post it in the chat for you guys as well. Yeah, that's all I got.
Cool. No, Ben nailed it there. I think the thing is that what people don't understand is that there is no medicine or no other human being that can heal your body. What happens is that you take away all the influences that cause any sort of mitochondrial dysfunction, and the body heals itself. All those systems are in place. It's only the modern world that stops that. And so it's not just about diet, it's about all the light stuff as well. But if you've got the diet sorted, all the light sorted, everything, and you've still got a whole load of panics about whatever's going on in your life, or childhood traumas still cropping up, or whatever it is that keeps you in that state of fight or flight, that will also stop any ultimate healing. You know, we all hear about people who go carnivore and healed in 2 weeks. It's not, it doesn't happen that way for everybody. If that was the part of their life that was wrong and they sorted it, then fine. But, you know, I've learned everything I know from having every part of my life messed up. You know, I always say that I've only learned through the sort of university of being a complete idiot. And so all of those parts, I can see how they tie in together to give your body a state with no toxins, everything it needs to rebuild that you've eaten, and no other stresses, or at least as few as you possibly can. And then it will kick in those healing systems like you couldn't believe. So get everything right, you know, get a consult with somebody or whatever. It's, you know, when I do a consult, I'll sit there and listen for most of it, because then things come out. You can just pick these things out, these little things on all these different levels that people are doing wrong. And it could be staring at a screen all day. It could be freaking out because you're in the wrong marriage. It could be anything, you know, that's keeping you in that tense state. And nothing is going to heal while you're in that tense state, because the body then prioritizes. If you're in fight or flight, the body is prioritizing those, you know, panic chemicals and signals and whatever. So it's saying, right, we're running away from a saber-toothed tiger now. It doesn't realize that actually you're worrying about your mortgage or this or that, or, you know, you're not getting on with your boss. And so the more of those things that you can sort out and plug those holes, whether it's through diet light or maybe EFT or something like that, to change beliefs and eliminate traumas in the past and fears and whatever. If you can do more of those, the better. That's why on the Big Fat Challenge, you know, it's focused at the first thing we said, or Ben really had the idea to make people realize that we run on fats, and that's more important than anything else on a dietary level. But in there, we see people doing that and they're not quite getting there. So we have sort of resources for EFT and all that kind of thing. Even as Jonathan mentioned, spiritual stuff, but that's a little bit too much to go into here, I guess. But, you know, the more of those areas that you have covered, the more the body will be allowed to heal itself. Nothing actually heals the body. No supplement, no medicine, nothing. It's the body does itself. Just get out of its way. That's all I got.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Is strict carnivore enough to heal leaky gut? Because yeah, carnivore doesn't heal anything. You heal, like Phil says, beautifully said.
Yeah, I like that.
It's
I just want to
getting out of the way, isn't it?
Yeah, getting out of the way of yourself. I mean, there's so many things I do sometimes which I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. And all these things are going to add up, 1% here, 1% there, and I should not have done it. But that's life, I'm afraid. I'm going to go back around a little bit because it's a prime example of why consultation is useful, like Phil just said. So the gentleman or the lady that answered the question about having Crohn's, I'm going to find it. Let's just start it. Sorry, bear with me. Thanks for answering the question. You had beef tides at every meal. Basically, long story short, they've been doing carnivore for 6 months, and they're eating only 1.4 kilos of mince per day. That's an enormous amount of food. That's Sean Baker level amount of food. Peak athlete, 6'5". That's how much food I'm eating right now. Well, about 3/4 of the food that I'm eating right now. So there's probably the first dilemma. So honestly, I'd book a consultation if you want a bit more insight with any of us guys, because we could probably sort that out for you quite quickly. But yeah, that's a lot of food. So I'm going to get back to the next question. What's going on?
Sorry, that's my fault. I wasn't on silenced, and I left there. I didn't put my phone on silent either. Sorted now.
Yeah. All right. Have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and struggle with the histamine thing, MCAS. 52 days on strict carnivore, stomach pain always after eating, slow motility. I'm not sure what I can do except for wait for healing. It sounds like gastroparesis, but I could be wrong. Does anyone have any takes on this sort of question? Like when the guts just don't move things along. I've got some ideas, but I'll open it up.
Well, I'll jump in. I mean, not especially, except that 52 days is really not very long, is it? And then again, you're saying strict carnivore here, Jane. It depends what that strict carnivore is, whether it's including dairy, eggs, which might bung you up. It's not saying how much fat you're eating. So, yeah, more questions than answers on that one, to be honest. Anyone else?
Okay, we'll go with.
I've just screenshotted that and sent it to Heather, who might have something to add, because she has EDS as well.
I've had a few clients with gastroparesis. All I basically do is the same thing that I do with someone with a gallbladder issue. Titrate the fat up, split the food up. That's basically it. Make sure they're not eating too much food, and just make sure they stay strict. That seems to be what I found. But yeah, Ribeye Rob, I just want to wish Lee a speedy recovery. Hang in there, brother. I'm sure everyone in the community is thinking of you. I'm sure Lee appreciates that for sure. So thank you very much for the super chat.
Appreciate that. Thanks, mate.
We'll get to the next question now. Is there any need for probiotics on carnivores? If so, what's the best source? Ooh, this is a fun question to answer. Very nuanced answers, I think, from all of us. Should we start with Stephen?
No, I'll wait to hear from Ben and Phil, actually.
All right, then. Well, I don't know. You know, when I was veggie and keto, I'd take a lot of probiotics and spend a load of money on them. I was always making up various successful and unsuccessful batches of sauerkraut and kombucha. There was always kombucha. You know, what are they called? Can't remember. But anyway, you know, they were multiplying in my cupboard, and it was all a whole load of faff and a real pain. Maybe they did some good back then. Scobies, that was a word, isn't it? But you know, now carnivore, I have no need for probiotics. I feel far better than all the time that I had a few veg and I would take loads of probiotics. I think if you mean commercial probiotics, a lot of them are just capsules full of stuff that you don't know what they are. I mean, even if they were okay when they came out of wherever they were made, then they might have just died afterwards. I wouldn't trust anything particularly in a capsule. You know, I think ancestrally at certain stages, we did a load of fermented foods. We might have got a certain benefit out of it, but nobody really understands the microbiome. Nobody understands. If you feel great, whatever your microbiome is, it's fine. And I just feel that, you know, save your money for steak. It's going up and up in price these days. Get rid of the probiotics, get rid of all the plants, and you probably won't need them, I'd say. Bit simplistic, but anyone else?
Yeah, I'd chuck in. I think you got this from Sean, didn't you, Phil? What is a healthy microbiome? And it's the microbiome that a healthy person has.
And that varies widely.
Yeah, of course. The thing is that your micro. I had this today. Somebody said, "Oh, probiotics are really, really important." I had to jump on Facebook. I try and hold back most of the time, but yeah, these probiotics are really, really important. Now, I'm not saying they're never useful. If you've wrecked your gut with oral antibiotics, for example, there could be, or various other things that could wipe out your colony in there. I'm not saying there's no way, there's no use for these things. I'm not saying there's no use for fecal transplants even, which is even more extreme. But on the whole, your gut microbiome adjusts itself to the food that you feed it. And there's people that say, there are good bacteria that require fiber in the gut. Well, no, there's bacteria that like fiber, will feed on fiber, and and make farts out of it. It's great if that floats your boat or elevates your balloon or whatever it is that you're using the farts for, then that's absolutely fine. Yeah, thank you, Scobie. Yeah, but yeah, on the whole, I think for the general purpose, it's like any kind of supplement, and unless you've got a jolly good reason, then the default should be no probiotics in my book.
Yeah. I know there's a delay, but can I jump in? Can you hear me, guys? Or I have no idea how much delay. Yeah. I was going to say, if probiotics worked, you'd only need to take one. So if your flora is out of whack, then it's going to do the exact same thing to those bacteria that it's done to the previous. So in my opinion, you need to fix your gut first. And where people were talking about fiber, where it's food for the gut, it's not food for us, it's food for the gut. Well, we already know that has to generate short chain fatty acids in the gut, transmuted into ketone bodies. Well, when you're on a carnivore diet, you have those same two main keto bodies circulating in the blood, right? Beta hydroxybutyrate and acetoacetate. So it's not about the probiotics, it's about the prebiotics, but you want to fix the gut first. Then, with a proper high-fat carnivore diet, PKD, you could use some kefir, you could use some dairy potentially. It's different for everybody, but in my opinion, probiotics are a scam. If you're in a situation where you're not functioning correctly and your flora's in a state, probiotics aren't going to touch anything. They're not going to make any positive difference. Heal your gut, PKD style, high-fat carnivore. Stay away from potential culprits. All plants, of course, seed oils, definitely alcohol, stress. But in the beginning, you actually want to cut out dairy. Get yourself on a high-fat line. The bodies will nourish your biome, will nourish the colonocytes, and you can go from there on out. I think probiotics are just honestly a scam, because otherwise we'd only need to take one. And everybody, once you're at the store, you're always buying them. It's like, well, why are you buying these probiotics? They've never worked, so.
Yeah, cool. Can I just read out this one from the chat where Andrew's popped up? Hi, Andrew. Andrew Scarborough. The best thing for me is moving away from London. I can't wait. You can have the best diet in the world, but if your environment is poor, it'll always be an uphill battle. And I think that's spot on. There is the whole environmental thing as well. If you're living in the middle of London, flooded with blue light and EMFs from everybody's Wi-Fi all around, you're going to find it much easier to heal if you're away from there. So good one, Andrew. Thank you.
Stephen's not saying anything. I'm going to say that for probiotics, funny enough, the most dense bacteria that you'll find in probiotics is in animal foods. So you're talking about the kefir, the yogurts, things like that. When you actually look at the colony forming units of it, like there's so many trillion in it, you'll always find that in animal foods, funny enough. The problem is the lactose, the dairy, that can be irritant for some people. In contrast to that, we can look at things like sodium butyrate or butyric acid, which you'll find in butter, which is one of the most healthful things for the endothelial cell lining of the gut lining. And I've experienced that myself. My guts are always better with butter in my diet. You don't need a lot, 20 grams, 30 grams plus a day. Kind of matches what they see in the studies of people with Crohn's disease to help heal the gut. You also find studies on certain proteins, different amino acids, which can be beneficial to the gut lining, including citrulline, funny enough, a nitric oxide precursor. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts, honestly. So there's pros and cons to all these things. So when Phil says, "Oh, don't eat dairy," and I say, "Well, do eat dairy if you tolerate it," there's nuance to that. There's but if can you not? So it's a very caveated kind of a situation to talk about. Well, it's just some people is just eat the foods that you tolerate and eat enough of them. Just remember as well what your bacterial gut will be formed of is what you've eaten, done, exposed yourself to in terms of environmental and dietary interventions for the past 3 weeks roughly. And that's also the time that it takes to get zonulin back to normal when you get in a gut healing protocol. So whatever you do, it has to be about a 3-week intervention to know if it works for sure. So dropping out dairy for 1 week, you might reduce your intolerability to it if you're intolerant to components within it. But to get the healing effect that you're talking about, to get the zonulin levels back on track, a suggested marker of intestinal permeability, you're going to have to do something for 3 weeks. So there's no good doing a lion diet for a week. I'm going to do a lion diet challenge for a week. No, not good enough. 3 weeks or more. So you just remember, it's a long haul thing. You're not going to achieve all your health outcomes that you sort of kind of desire just by doing something like a challenge for a week. I'm still doing this myself. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do it. I actually spoke to Professor Barkay recently. We're talking about some different things behind the scenes, and basically I want to try out the lion diet again, but I'm going to do it with calcium supplementation. So I don't get deficient in it. My heart doesn't beat like mad. I don't get severe anxiety and manic depressive episodes, which was not pleasant at all. So I'm going to find a way to try and do the carnivore diet, the strict carnivore lion diet, beef and lamb, ruminant meat only. Lots of fat after my bodybuilding competition, with a calcium supplement. So I'm going to try and find a little biohack there to help alleviate the polymorphism that I do have for calcium intake in my diet. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on probiotics. And like Lee said, which is very thoughtful given the fact that he's probably got no energy right now. You've got to remember, you can't take these supplements forever. If you take them once, maybe they get you to a better state, but what happens after that? What do you do after that? So you look at the long haul point of it. It's a long haul process, and if you're someone that's susceptible to these sort of things, you're going to have to try much harder than the rest of us. Lee, for example, I know Phil for sure, has to try so much harder than the rest of us. You can't eat a bowl of chips and gravy every Friday night and loads of alcohol and probably get away with it. It's not going to work for them. For me, I could probably burn it off and be fine about a day or two after. But for those guys, it could seriously mess them up. So set your goals, set your plan, do the intervention, give it the rough time frame that you need to do to make the change and see what happens, and have different objective and subjective markers to assess if it was helpful or not. Should we move to the next question, or did you want to have a stab at this one?
Stephen, did you want to add?
No, I wanted to move on. Actually, I was just conscious of the time and all the questions.
No worries. I've got some feedback on the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and MCAS, by the way, from Heather, who says, I have EDS and am researching MCAS. I most likely have it too, sensitive to touch, smell, and lotions. Her feedback is, I would say stomach pain is too much fat in one go. Try to eat little and often throughout the day, and variety, like sweetbreads, which are high in fat, liver, etc. I used to have issues with fat, but fully adapted now. And good fat's not butter. So I hope that's useful.
That's helpful, yeah. I'll pick a question that I think Stephen would be really good at answering if I can. Ben, can you see one at all that's quite, relevant?
Can I just jump in quickly while you're choosing, because in the chats I see Dodo saying raw dairy, butter tea is awesome with salt from Tall Cedars. Debbie TDP, eat ghee better than butter. I've got to say, guys, please have a look at my YouTube channel. Have a look at 2 interviews, one little short one, Ben and I with Sophia Clements, and a podcast. Reconsider dairy, like Jonathan says. If you can take it and you're really sure you can take it, go for it. But raw dairy can appear like you're getting on okay with it, but the problems can come down the line. Sophia Clement says it's even worse than pasteurized. But have a look at my YouTube channel. Just Phil Escott, put in Phil Escott, Sophia Clements. Have a look at those 2 interviews. I'm not saying it's gospel, but have another view on that raw dairy is not maybe so ideal for adult human beings of a different species. And maybe ghee is not the great thing it's said to be, because it still contains what it says, what it's said not to contain. And in certain autoimmune situations, even a few molecules can be a problem. Sophia says it's not the quantity, it's the quality. So I wouldn't rave about dairy. If you can take it, absolutely enjoy it. But I don't think it's a health food. I just don't. Right. Sorry. Move on.
Got a question here about
Are you in
oily
bed
fish.
now, Stephen? Am I boring you?
Yeah, no, I was trying to be supportive of Lee and make him feel not left out.
That's how not with it I am.
Bloody awful. It must be awful what you're going through.
Let's all do that then. I've only got this one. Right. We're all cushioned up. Armlets.
Do you know what you should
Lee,
all do?
mine's
Is
too
pick
far
up,
to
like,
reach.
a heavy weight and hold it out with one arm. That's more accurate.
Oh.
Is oily fish beneficial for healing digestion, or best to stick to red meat only?
It's a trial and error thing, really. I mean, we've been talking about individuality, haven't we? Yes, oily fish, omega-3s, changing the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, all of that sort of stuff. But, you know, I think from the comments and some of the questions we haven't got to, it is down to, if your digestion is compromised, you've got to be careful about what you put in. I think if you're doing not as well as you'd like on red meat, then yeah, include some oily fish. I definitely think that. I mean, it also chimes in with a question we haven't looked at, where someone said they fasted for 7 days and now they're having trouble adding fat in. So what are you doing at the moment? Are you eating 3 times a day, twice a day, once a day? Because all of those things are important. If you start adding extra fat in, so for instance, let's say that person was fasting for a long time, your bile production needs raw materials. To make bile, it needs raw materials. So if you fast for a long period of time, your bile production is going to go down. I mean, that's something maybe people don't think about with extended fasting. So if you have gut problems, you've got to look at firstly what you're putting in, but what is causing the problem. And I think if you're not getting results with red meat only, which I'm guessing from the question, I would just try the oily fish, but I wouldn't increase the volume of food. I would decrease the red meat and replace it with the oily fish and see how you feel. But you might not feel that great straight away because your bile production might not have caught up. So that's the thing I'm trying to say here. Red meat tends to be less fatty. If you look at 100 grams of a ribeye, 2 grams is saturated fat. You know, people think it's full of fat, isn't? Well, you go to a fish, as a proportion, it is much fattier. So, which is why they call it fatty fish, I suppose. So I think if you're doing this, just be careful and mindful and don't think, right, oh, that guy, that idiot who put a pillow behind his head, he reckons it might work. I'm going to do loads of oily fish for the next 3 days, every meal. Just take a little bit of red meat out, add a little bit of fish, and just do that for a couple of days and just change the balance for a bit and see what happens. Because honestly, you could not be asking that question if red meat only was working for you. So that's my guess. And that's the problem with not being able to talk to everyone in great depth, and why Jonathan and everyone else mentioned consults. These things are relatively simple, but they're not easy because your history is completely different to everybody else's. So that would be my take on it. I would definitely try it. I mean, as somebody that eat fish for 50 years, I got to my 50th, started going low carb, and all my allergies to fish completely sort of disintegrated. So I love fish. I can't get enough of it. But I do think you might be on the right track. If red meat's not working for you, I don't know how long you've been doing that, then try the oily fish.
Could I jump in on
advice.
that one? That you know, I don't think fish is so good on its own, for example, because even oily fish doesn't have enough fat really to sustain you. But I always say to people who come to me with any kind of neurological issue, whether it's Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, neuropathy, anything like that, I think fish actually is very good in that situation. I don't think it heals the digestion any quicker than red meat.
I do.
You do? You think so? Cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, maybe it does, but it definitely gets through the blood-brain barrier or whatever. They say fish is brain food, and I think that's absolutely true. And I think Jack Cruz is very hot on fish, and he even goes so far as to say the worst fish is better than the best meat. But that's Jack, and he thinks light is the thing, and fish, if you can't get the light or whatever. But
and alcohol.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah, that helps, yeah. But oily fish, if you got some neurological issue, I would say, step it up. But for anybody who doesn't, it's also absolutely fine. But just make sure you keep the fat ratios up.
Good advice. Yeah, the fat seems to be the thing here, guys. If you're eating too much protein, you got a leaky gut, things are going to pass through. When you look at like an amino acid spectrum of a food, it's not just that. There's other tiny little molecules of protein which can fit through, which are like downstream eventualities of other amino acids that have turned into something else. They're the things which break the gut. So you're talking about the gluten, for example, in plant-based foods, things like that, the lectins. All those things are like downstream weird little amino acids which are probably tiny in volume. They make a massive bloody dent in your gut. As if it's like animal foods, compatible foods, which match what your body's made of naturally. It's not so much of a problem. I've said before, there's some evidence suggests that DHA is very healing to the gut. That it reduces some kind of marker of intestinal permeability. I'd have to look up the study again, but largely speaking, I think it's the fat needs to be enough to support your energy. The protein, just the bare minimum. There's obviously a limit to how much protein you can eat. We've discussed this in the digestion talk early today, I think. So yeah, should we wrap that up there, guys? Have you got any last points? Because I'm aware of the time and I'm aware it's very late and I'm tired as well.
I do have to go, so sorry to be rude. I will shoot
worries.
straight off.
No worries. Take care. Cheers.
Good questions today. Just sorry we couldn't get through more of them.
Yeah, sorry guys. If you want them answered, just get into them as quickly as possible. And make sure you follow all of our channels. So Lee Coppice, which was at Kent Carnivore earlier. Coach Stephen, you find him at Coach Stephen, and that's his website there on the screen in the white black box. Phil Escott and Ben Hunt from the bigfatchallenge.com. And me, Carnivore Muscle or Composition Consultant, interchangeably used. I don't really mind. Just call me Jonathan if you like as well. So hopefully we'll see you guys next week, and we'll be talking about... Stay tuned to find out.